Welcome to Pulse of Africa channel, your reliable place for real, up-to-date news from across Africa. If this is your first time here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you stay updated, informed, and connected to what's really happening from across the continent. Good day, this is Pulse of Africa, bringing you a story that is reshaping not just Burkina Faso but perhaps the wider African continent. The ground did not shake from war, nor from natural disaster, but from the words and actions of a leader determined to redefine justice. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso's young and fiery leader, stood before his nation and thundered, "If a minister dares to steal even $1, justice will strike without mercy. Not tomorrow, not after endless investigations now." It was not just rhetoric, it was a vow. In a land long scarred by corruption, where stolen funds robbed hospitals of medicine, schools of books, and farmers of tools, Traoré announced a new order: no more delays, no more slogans, only swift and decisive action. At dawn, Ouagadougou woke not to birdsong, but to a political earthquake. Unmarked vehicles moved like shadows across the city, phones went dead, government servers froze, and in the space of just 30 minutes, more than 40 senior officials, once untouchable, now powerless, were taken into custody. Offshore accounts were blocked, assets frozen, files sealed. It was not chaos, it was choreography. For the ordinary citizen, this was more than law enforcement, it was liberation. For the first time, power itself trembled. Not the people. Traoré's campaign against corruption was not an impulsive show of force. It had been meticulously prepared for months by an elite investigative unit working in total secrecy. Their efforts climaxed with what is now called the Three Thunder Decrees. The first decree struck at offshore accounts. Millions in stolen public funds had been siphoned abroad. Overnight, every bank account linked to officials and their families was frozen. The message was clear: the safe havens that once protected the elite had turned into cages. The second decree dismantled the system of shadow contracts. For decades, fake companies and inflated tenders bled the nation dry. From now on, no official would be allowed to do business with the state. Power was no longer a license to enrich oneself, and the third decree required public asset declarations. To lead by example, Traoré himself declared his modest possessions: one house, one old SUV, and $18,000 in savings. No secret mansions, no offshore wealth. For the first time, the people could compare the humble lifestyle of their president to their own hardships and see honesty rather than betrayal. These decrees were thunderclaps, not just across Burkina Faso, but across the continent. They challenged the assumption that corruption is inevitable. The arrests soon gave way to trials. And unlike the murky past where cases against the powerful disappeared into shadows, these trials unfolded in broad daylight, broadcast to the nation. The former director of customs, once one of the most powerful men in Burkina Faso, was found guilty of siphoning millions through fraudulent tariffs. His sentence: 10 years in prison, all assets seized. Next came the deputy minister of infrastructure. He had orchestrated a web of contracts funneling public funds into private estates abroad. The judgment was merciless: 12 years behind bars, properties confiscated, and exposure of a transnational corruption network. Perhaps the most shocking was the case from the Ministry of Education. A senior advisor was convicted of embezzling $300,000 meant for textbooks, money that should have taught children to read, instead spent on luxury abroad. His punishment was swift: years behind bars and public disgrace. For ordinary citizens, these trials were not just legal proceedings. They were civics lessons. They revealed how corruption robs a nation, not in abstract numbers, but in stolen futures. Roads never built, medicines never bought, schools never supplied. But Traoré did not stop at home. He knew corruption is never local. Stolen money travels into foreign accounts, into European mansions, into luxury yachts in the Mediterranean. So Burkina Faso created an international asset recovery task force. Using advanced tracking tools and partnering with nations like Turkey, Russia, and Kazakhstan, they traced and froze stolen wealth abroad. Within months, over $120 million was secured. For Burkina Faso, a country where GDP per capita hovers around $950, that sum was transformational. It meant roads repaired, schools funded, clinics supplied. Even more remarkable, the recovered funds were made transparent. A public portal allowed citizens to see exactly where the money went. Did $2 million build rural clinics? Did $500,000 supply textbooks? Every figure was visible, undeniable, for a population long betrayed by secrecy. This was revolutionary. The campaign expanded further into natural resources. Burkina Faso produces nearly 70 tons of gold annually, worth billions of dollars, yet less than 5% of that wealth ever remained in the country. Traoré froze all gold export contracts and launched the nation's first state-owned refinery. Foreign corporations, stunned and angered, threatened lawsuits and sanctions, but to the people, this was liberation. For miners risking their lives for as little as $5 a day, it was justice. For farmers watching rivers poisoned by foreign mining, it was hope. Gold, once the symbol of exploitation, was now rebranded as a shield of sovereignty. Burkina Faso was no longer just a warehouse of raw materials for the world. It was the architect of its own destiny. Each confiscated villa became the foundation for a hospital. Each frozen account became the source of new classrooms. This campaign is less about punishment than about dignity restored. For the first time in decades, citizens began to believe in accountability, but the challenge remains. Will this fire of justice endure, or will it be smothered by internal betrayal and external pressure? Can Burkina Faso resist multinational giants and neo-colonial powers determined to protect their interests? These are questions yet unanswered. But for now, the image is unforgettable. Ministers in handcuffs, verdicts read aloud in public courts, and ordinary people finally seeing their government serve rather than steal. What we are witnessing in Burkina Faso is extraordinary. For too long, Africa has been told corruption is inevitable, that leaders cannot hold their own elites accountable without external intervention. Yet Traoré has shown the opposite. He has proven that justice can be homegrown, swift, and transparent. Yes, challenges lie ahead. Resistance from elites will be fierce, and global financial giants will not surrender easily. But for now, Burkina Faso has lit a torch in the darkness, a torch that may inspire other nations to rise and reclaim their dignity. This has been your Pulse of Africa news report, bringing you the stories that matter most to the continent and beyond. If you found this coverage insightful, make sure to subscribe to Pulse of Africa, like this video, and share it widely so that more voices can join the conversation. Together, let us keep the Pulse of Africa strong.